reflect the views and opinions of DCTV. All producers and guests appearing on programs provide information and opinions based on information they consider to be reliable. DCTV does not affirm the completeness and accuracy. All DCTV members agree to adhere to DCTV's statement of compliance and are participants in a community medium forum where they're exercising their freedom of speech.
Good evening. I'm your host, Karen Hudis. This show is a series that has been coming to you from DCTV since 2015 in a weekly program called the Network of Global Corporate Control. Today's program is called Staying Alive. Thank you to DCTV and Carmen Stanley, studio producer. And today, Maurice Jackson is the director, and Jamie Fain is on audio and teleprompter, and Aliyah Jamari is our floor director. Our title, Staying Alive, is because together we are staying alive. Let me follow storytelling rules so that people who are just learning about what we're doing in this series can follow. I'm going to summarize the story. The storytelling rules don't tell a boring story. Staying alive is not boring when the villain we're telling you about is trying to land us all in World War III. Do tell a story with a clearly defined villain. The villain is the central banks who issue the world's currencies. They're all one bank, and they're directed by the Black Nobility. The Black Nobility consists of bloodline families descended from the Pharaohs in Egypt. The Black Nobility has been with us since the previous Ice Age. The villain owns nearly all the media and bribes just about all the politicians. The villain thought we were too stupid to catch them at their corrupt game, but they've met their match. Their match is all of us. We are all working together in a large coalition that includes all of the world's military powers, including the United States. That is why I'm here today. Our coalition is much stronger than the villain. We're in the middle of the tug-of-war with the villain, but actually this is just a cleanup exercise because we've already won. How do I know we've already won? It means a lot when the banking cartel tries to hide a tweet that's called checkmate and doesn't succeed, and then tries unsuccessfully to hide a teleprompter that says there's a lot going on because these culprits are trying to disprove our statement that we're stronger than the banking cartel. This is strong evidence. The banking cartel is weaker than the coalition for the rule of law. The other point to make is that on the 31st of August, 2016, the Earth's healers noticed that energies are strong and chaotic. This is when enough people realized that we were going to defeat the banking cartel. In other words, we reached critical mass. Now we have to convince the rest of the people who've been duped by the banking cartel that the banking cartel is lying about reality. And in the storytelling rules, it says, don't pretend you've never had to struggle. Yes, I've had to struggle. On August 6, 2016, I was attacked and given an irregular heartbeat and saw everything upside down after I refused to allow an agent from the central banks named Julius to gain control of the world's assets in the global debt facility. More recently, an agent from the banking cartel named Taversio Villamor Marcos Taliano Tajian IV threatened to have me arrested by Interpol if I didn't agree to sign over the world's wealth. Instead, I informed Taversio Villamor Marcos Taliano Tajian IV that he had no authority over the world's assets. I'm the overseer mandate trustee of the trust containing the world's monetary gold reserves and other wealth. This trust is called the Global Debt Facility. The World Bank and the International Monetary Fund were set up at the end of World War II to manage the world's wealth in the Global Debt Facility. I'm authorized to speak for the United States and the rest of the countries on the Board of Governors of the World Bank and International Monetary Fund concerning the world's assets. We're all working together in our common struggle with the villain. We're managing to keep the villain from landing us in World War III. Another rule in storytelling rules is to embrace your past and the experiences that define you. Don't end the story in the middle. Do provide a happy ending. Actually, the story I have to tell involves all of us, and we're right in the middle of it. The chances we have a happy ending are greater than 90%. That's because I'm following the blueprint of a very accurate game theory model that a political scientist named Jacek Kugler, who developed this model for the U.S. National War College, brought to the World Bank in 2004. This is the first live segment on DCTV since the 21st of August. On the 4th of September, I produced a live segment outside the studio, and there's a clip. If you could do a roll-in, Mo?
Of global corporate control. As you see, we're not in DCTV's studios. This was because of the Labor Day holiday in the United States. We couldn't get adequate staff. So I didn't want to just rerun another series, which is what we're doing for the people that subscribe to the cable DCTV. But for people that are up on the internet, you can see I'm going to be uploading this episode a little bit later. And the reason why I was very interested in having a live session this today is because there is a lot going on. The main thing that happened is an exchange that I had with Tiburcio Villamor Marcos. He is probably the son of Ferdinand Marcos, although according to Wolfgang Struck, he's an imposter, but be that as it may, the Banking Cartel has tried very hard to have Tiburcio Villamor Marcos claim that he's entitled to the Global Debt Facility, which for new viewers, this is a trust fund that was set up at the end of World War II and agreed to by all the countries of the world. It contains the world's wealth and the world's monetary gold reserves. And a little bit more about that. The United States monetary gold reserves are not in the Federal Reserve at all. They're with the Global Debt Facility, which is this trust fund. And the reason I'm involved is because I was in the World Bank legal department for over 20 years, and I started noticing that there was a lot of corruption, and I blew the whistle, which means that I started going to all of the United States authorities, and including the Congress, and I also, I was fired in 2007, and I didn't accept that because I knew that this was retaliation for my blowing the whistle and reporting to the U.S. Congress that there was what we call lack of internal controls. That means that there was no way to know whether the World Bank financial statements were correct, because anybody that tried to report an inaccuracy was going to be fired. And there were other whistleblowers that I was working with, including a woman named Elaine Colville, who was fired for reporting that her unit was getting double charged. And this obviously is no good for the financial records. So I was fired in 2007. I didn't
to scroll up, but as many people said that they liked when I spoke extemporaneously. There's a link to the rest of the video in the teleprompter. I post the teleprompters on Twitter and Facebook, and I also upload them on YouTube. They're usually in the first section of the videos, hidden behind a Show More button. Since YouTube is owned by the villain of our story, it's sometimes hard to find the teleprompters. Send me an email to let me know if the Banking Cartel has tried to censor the information by breaking links. Also, if you have any questions, please email me or ask your question in the comments section on the YouTube archives. I want to tell you about a recent comment on this video. AnonX said, "Very interesting. At the end, you say it's not a dictatorship as such, and a complete opposite, it will be left to the people to decide. Even if the corruption, propaganda, and wars end, we still have religion, which is a big problem. Most religions have learned to coexist, but Islam has not." And I commented on that. I said that the rest of AnonX's comment is designed to incite hatred and create conflict. AnonX is a sock puppet. That is, an account that's disguised as a person, but is simply providing the banking cartel's viewpoint. And my response is, we are dealing with religion after the reset. I'm blocking your comment as out of order. I want to show you a comment on the 24th of August, which raised another issue that's designed to disrupt the global currency reset and perpetuate the corruption in the world's money system. And this is the comment. What reason would we be deflected from learning the truth, savory or sweet, of the real news unless it was something like, oh, say, the aliens who seeded this world are coming to burst through our slumber and inform us that they've arrived for dinner and we are dinner? And my response is, we're not talking about the aliens who seeded this world. We are dealing with the corruption in our world. I'm aware that some people think they have experiences involving aliens. Most likely, all that they've had is a head trip from extremely low frequency scalar weaponry. We don't need to consider this issue for now. This topic serves the banking cartel, and it's a big distraction. This is just one example when the banking cartel tried to change the subject to extraterrestrials. Another banking cartel sock puppet tried the same trick on the 1st of September. We're putting the questions on religion and extraterrestrials on the back burner until we have ended the banking cartel's corruption. Some of the banking cartel's sock puppets have started talking about chaos. As overseer mandate trustee, I can leave issues on the back burner so that we don't lose our focus and so that we're not divided and conquered. Most people are tricked and bamboozled into the banking cartel's version of reality, and this disconnect is very destabilizing. The Coalition for the Rule of Law is not going to be able to arrange for a smooth transition as long as so many people remain clueless. What I've been doing for the past 3 years is to reduce the disconnect between the banking cartel's version of reality and actual reality. Face-to-face discussions between people who love each other can convince people much better than the documents I've been posting. I've been reaching a growing audience, but it's clear that I need your help for sure in reaching more people. Keep on pointing out this disconnect between the bankers' lies and reality to groups of people that you bring together. It's your groups that are going to clean up the corruption in villages and towns, and it's your groups that are going to issue local currencies, which are required in the global currency reset. It's these groups that are going to help us stay the course and negotiate the global currency reset. It's these groups that the Coalition for the Rule of Law needs to work with in the United States. If somebody remains hypnotized by the banking cartel's mind control, then leave this person alone and wait until more people understand reality. As John F. Kennedy said, a rising tide lifts all boats. This segment is called Staying Alive. We're all working together. I've learned an important way to fight the banking cartel from other people who contacted me. This is called the common law. It's old customary law from English-speaking countries, and it uses juries. A jury is a group of ordinary people who decide whether one person has harmed another, and grand juries decide whether there's enough evidence that a crime could have been committed. The late Justice Anton Scalia was speaking about the common law and grand juries when he said, and this quote is from U.S. v. Williams in 1992, "Grand juries are meant to be erected by the people." Justice Anton Scalia, in a 1992 ruling, stated, "Rooted in long centuries of Anglo-American history, the grand jury is mentioned in the Bill of Rights, but not in the body of the Constitution. It's not been textually assigned, therefore, to any of the branches described in the first 3 articles. It's a constitutional feature in its own right. In fact, the whole theory of its function is that it belongs to no branch of the institutional government, serving as a kind of buffer or referee between the government and the people." Anton Scalia was murdered and flown out of Texas to evade a coroner's investigation into the cause of his death. And there are common law countries. There's a map that you can see how many there are. I'll give you a little background reading, but first I'll explain this to you in layman's terms. The crux of the matter is that the people in the world are getting together to end the corruption coming from the banking cartel. And a lot of this corruption happened because people trusted the experts in the legal systems, the lawyers. Sadly, the lawyers made things so complicated that people were not comfortable handling these matters themselves. And that's where we started to go badly astray. People used to be comfortable handling their own legal problems and legal systems. This boiled-down approach to law is called common law. The people used to stay out of courtrooms asking for other people to hear their matters for them and decide and settle their disputes so there wouldn't have to be a fight to settle the matter and so that the strongest person wouldn't win automatically. The other people that decided these disputes are called a jury. When the parties to a dispute agree that the dispute will be decided by a jury, then the parties are honor-bound to follow through and follow the judgment of the jury. It's old-fashioned honesty and ethics that will lead to the enforcement of the jury's decision. What I'm doing is piggybacking on these old systems and adding in a new wrinkle, social media and the power transition model. What I'm saying is that I'm able to use the power transition model, which came from the Department of Defense, to predict, using game theory, how coalitions will form. This power transition model helps me keep the corrupt leaders honest. So that's how I'm enforcing the commercial liens against Trump, Dunford, Bowser Payne, and Newsham, and now Brett Kavanaugh. Of course, I'm giving these agents of the banking cartel the opportunity to answer my complaints that they're withholding the world's monetary gold reserves from the world's people. But the facts are speaking for themselves, and I don't expect these crooks are going to answer my affidavit. They've been caught red-handed in front of the world's people. That is, the people who've been paying attention. And I have a blog which describes the relationship between common law and maritime or admiralty law. That link is in the teleprompter. The bankers have been trying to stay away from common law. Instead, the bankers use the law of the sea, which is also called maritime law, to get away with all of their corruption. The bankers are scared of the common law and interfered with my screenshot of a comment from Daydreaming that he wants to learn more about common law. And you can see the screenshot in the teleprompter. And this is, I'm beginning to understand that I can insert my comments as we will have a peaceful transition and that will help others. So there's that, I feel better. That was from one person, and Daydreaming wrote on the 20th, I want to learn more about common law. And Daydreaming, yes, I'm just repeating, we've written that twice in this teleprompter. I've been using the common law to obtain commercial liens on the people who are preventing us from cleaning up the villains' corruption in the world's paper money system. I'm using the common law to obtain a commercial lien on Judge Brett Kavanaugh. On behalf of the world's people, I've placed liens on the Banking Cartel using the $2 quadrillion with the highest authority on earth for the commercial law, that's the Universal Postal Union. On the 19th of August, I told you what happened to Terry George Trussell. Trussell was a grand jury foreman in Florida and was given a 70-year jail sentence by a judge who treated Terry George Trussell as a straw man, and I'll explain that a little bit later what that is, and not as a person with any rights. I'm going to explain how this could have happened. Judge Hankinson was applying the law of the sea. Terry George Trussell, as a human being, was not given a hearing, and in the remaining time, okay, now I'm speaking extemporaneously. This is because people felt that if I speak without using the script in the teleprompter, I'm speaking more from the heart. Actually, I'm also speaking from the heart when I write something in the teleprompter. It just gives me a chance to go back and look at some of the evidence and to try to present things a little more logically. But in any event, I wanted to combine speaking extemporaneously and also reading from the teleprompter, since I did that speaking extemporaneously last week when the DCTV studios were not available. And I didn't want to skip a week because I felt that this was a very important time. It appears as if we're making a lot of progress. And what I usually do is I work together with many other people, and we do this, we work in groups for a lot of reasons. One reason is, as I've mentioned, when you're working with a group, it's very hard for the military, it's called scalar technology. When you're being subjected to this, and a lot of people are, they're called targeted individuals, the ones that are being subjected to this technology. It feels as if these are your own thoughts. And once you know that somebody can actually project, it's like hypnotism, project inside your thoughts something that they're actually thinking themselves, not you, then you can edit your thoughts. And that's what you need to do. When you have a group that you're working with, somebody will tell you when you're acting out of character because you may not notice this yourself. And when people that are operating this scalar technology know that you're in a group, they realize they're not going to make much progress. And that's a protection. Now let me speak a little about the commercial law and the common law, the commercial law liens. I learned this from a group that were actually a banking cartel. One of these people was a Mr. B. Lewis. And the first thing he did was he tried to create a commercial lien where he was listed on the commercial lien instead of the overseer mandate trustee, which is my function. He was trying to steal the world's wealth using a commercial lien. I caught him at it. I saw what he was doing. I said, no, you're not going to be on that commercial lien. The way the commercial lien works, it's under the common law, is you go to a person who's harming you and you say, you're harming me. This is the way you're harming me. And if you have an answer to that, you have to answer. And you give them 3 notices of the way that person's harming you, and you can get a default judgment. And this is what I've done. I've done this against the officials that are keeping us from the global debt facility. I have a commercial lien on Donald Trump. He never responded. I have a commercial lien on some of the honchos in the military, including Dunford. And the issue, of course, is that it's not going to be very easy to collect unless we actually do turn the tables. And the chances that we turn the tables are extremely high. I say 90 to 95%. That's because people are waking up to the fact that there is a reality, that there is this world's wealth that was put aside in the global debt facility at the World Bank at the end of World War II. And that's why I know about this, because I was at the World Bank, and many people inside the World Bank trusted me. I became a whistleblower. I was working with other whistleblowers. And since I was American, and they got to know me quite well, and they realized that I was just going to represent them. And so I'm actually a placeholder, because as the people in the world clean up the corrupt money coming from the banking cartel, using the world's wealth in the global debt facility, as we get rid of a lot of this corruption, people are going to retrofit things. They're going to get their governments, their actual governments back. The governments that we now have are not, they're not real. They're fake. And you saw that in the United States during the election, so-called election, of Donald Trump, because there was no electoral college. There couldn't be an electoral college because the Constitution has been taken out of effect. Now let me talk a little bit more about the way things are going to work during the transition. I had a wonderful conversation just before this session, and that was with somebody who was calling up to ask, how do we get the local currency? Because the villages and towns are supposed to issue local currency. And I've put links in many of the programs, but according to the person that I was talking to, that's really not good enough. She wants hands-on advice, and she said that she's a light worker, and she wants to coordinate. She wants to get active, in other words. And I love these kinds of contacts. Of course, I'm very grateful to somebody who wants to spend their time working on the global currency reset. We need more people like that. We need many people like that, because at the moment, I'm not able to get back into the World Bank. That's what I'll be talking about next week. I'm going to be pre-taping that session at the end of this. And so before I'm able to access the money that's available in the global debt facility, people are going to have to be volunteering. There's very strong documentary proof of what I'm telling you. I've worked together with the world's people to piece together how the banking cartel has been lying to all of us through the ages. A big bully trying to dominate the world's peoples is bound to create resistance and forge coalitions. The banking cartel's attacks against me and against my loved ones has only strengthened my resolve to mobilize resistance in the struggle to free ourselves from the corrupt banking cartel. I'm attaching more documentary proof at the end of the teleprompter. The best proof is our relationship and bonding together in the coalition to fight the banking cartel.